सरस्वती देवे गौरवंदे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Krishna Krishna Hare Now we need an engineer to tell us why that speaker is buzzing. Any engineers here? Grounding, it's not grounded. Move it in a different direction. Too much plugged into it. Solve the whole problem. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Paschatya Deshatarine. So I've chosen a topic tonight. Well, first, I want to make sure if you speak Chinese, you can. We're translating in Chinese. So if you need Chinese translation, and we're translating in Russian. No? Today, no. You can translate? You can try? Want to try? Something's better than nothing. Have any Russian translators here? Why don't you try? You?
I probably won't be able to translate simultaneously.
I'll speak slowly. Slowly. But I repeat things. Don't I repeat? I repeat. You want to try? You have your machine? You have your machine?
Yes, I have.
You want to set it up? Well, who needs Russian translation? Two. They need. Okay, so let's try. I will speak very slowly and I will pause. And I hope you don't fall asleep. When I was 17, we went to a lecture on transcendental meditation, and they advertised it relaxed you. And so that's how they would speak. Very relaxing. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. Zdrastya, ni hao. Buenos tardes. Buenos noches.
In Polish?
In Polish?
Dobry wieczór.
Dobry wieczór.
Dobry wieczór.
Dobry wieczór.
Dobry wieczór.
It's like good evening.
Yeah. Bonsoir.
German?
German. Bill Gates? No.
That's how our is.
Yeah, close enough. So, I wanted to speak tonight about how Prabhupada, I don't have the right phrase for it, and this sounds strange, how Prabhupada broke the rules, because we know Prabhupada adhered to the rules, but he also apparently broke. That's not a good word. Prabhupada adjusted the rules to accommodate more people. So more people could become Krishna conscious. He adjusted the rules. But since last night's discussion was so important, I didn't want to go on to the next subject until we allowed you to ask questions or make comments. That's it. If I take a sip after every sentence, that gives him time to translate. So we'll do that. I have to drink a lot tonight. Where did my bottle go? So, I will sum up what we talked about last night to remind you. And we made the point that because we're individuals, we won't agree on everything. And we won't see things the same way. There's a devotee who organizes Bhagavad Gita classes in Vrindavan. And she invites a different person every night. And they speak on the same verse. So it's one verse a week, 5 different people. And she said, every lecture is different. And it's the same verse. So we had discussed this in relation to how to unify people when by nature we disagree, even if we're reading or seeing the same thing. You read the purport, you read the verse, and I say, what does that mean to you? And you say, well, that definitely means this. And I say, what does that mean to you? Oh, it definitely means that. It's the same purport, because we're individuals. So we had discussed how it's necessary to make room for different individuals. And he's right and you're right, which is so interesting about Krishna consciousness. But he wants to make you wrong and you want to make him wrong, when you're actually both right. You're both right and you both have different viewpoints. That's the nature of the spiritual. It can accommodate different viewpoints. And I'll give you an example. Prabhupada had written to devotees who were starting a school. He said, this is the most important work in our movement, is to start a school to educate the next generation. Because if you educate children from the beginning, then they will have the most Krishna consciousness, much more than we have. And then some devotees were preaching in universities, and Prabhupada said, this is the most important, because unless we attract intelligent men, we will not have leaders, and if we don't have leaders, our movement cannot continue. Then, of course, you all know he wrote to the book distributors, that book distribution is the most important service. And he wrote to the mothers that your children, that's the most important service. And to the scientists, the scientific preaching is most important. So now we have 5 things that are most important. If you're in an English class and you write a paper, these 5 things are the most important, you will get corrected by your teacher who will say, most important is only for one. Just like if you say unique, you can't say most unique, because unique means by itself, right? So it can't be 5 most important, it can only be 1. But in the spiritual world, there's 5 most important. Isn't that interesting? So you can disagree with her, she can disagree with you, and you both can be right, when applied in a certain context, in a certain situation. For example, in Gaudiya Math, women are not allowed to live in the temple. When Prabhupada came to America, he saw that young men and young women were raised the same way. There's no segregation. And the young women were anxious to practice Krishna consciousness. So he made an adjustment. And he was criticized for making this adjustment, because it was never done in India. And we're going to read some purports where Prabhupada defends that adjustment. But the point is that it's true in India. Women don't go on the altar, it's not the tradition. Women don't live in temples, it's not the tradition. And if they do, the general public has a problem with that. But if you go to America, it's a different culture. And so what's right, Prabhupada said, what works in India will not necessarily work in America and vice versa. So he's right, he said, no, we should have women live in the temple. And you say, no, we shouldn't. But you're talking about India and he's talking about Amsterdam, which Amsterdam is probably the most liberal place in the three worlds. Maybe I should say most degraded. Maybe I should be polite and say, the place which is most different from Mayapur is Amsterdam. If in Amsterdam you have all the men in the front and all the women in the back, no woman would ever come back to that temple. And she might even come back a week later just to bomb it or something. Say, I can't stand this, isn't it? They wouldn't. Right? So you both can be right within a different situation. So the spiritual world has room for different things to be right, which apparently disagree. Now some devotees would say, no, you have to synergize and make them work. But in the purports we'll read, Prabhupada's not saying that. He says what works here may not work here. What works here doesn't work here. He's not trying to compromise it. Just, oh, this works here and that. So last night we were talking about that idea that we can disagree but both be right. And then how do we function? Or not function. First, we have to come to understand that. And then the next question is, how do we function once we understand that? Because if we don't understand it, we're going to clash. And our energy is going to go into trying to prove the other person is wrong. Not working? Instead of energy going into preaching, it goes into arguing. Have you seen that? Raise your hand if you've seen that. If you've been on the internet, you've seen it. And I'm sure you all thought, why are we putting energy into this? Because there are people waiting for us to teach them about Krishna. So, we concluded last night's discussion by saying that the challenge ahead of us is to learn how to work together, or working together may also mean working together at a distance in different places, in respect of devotees that have differing views than we do, rather than trying to convert. Because we've seen as individuals, we have certain inclinations or tendencies. Now, a devotee had sent me something today, which is very interesting. And sociologists have studied the mentality of liberals and the mentality of conservatives, and there are certain dynamics that exist between them, whether it's politics or religion or anything. Liberals think a certain way, conservatives think a certain way. Human nature. And so we're also humans, we also have a nature, even though we're devotees. So these same principles affect us to one degree or another. But because we're devotees, we're supposed to learn how to make it work, because we're utilizing our uniqueness and difference in the service of Krishna. No? It's working? Translator? Yes? Okay? Is it okay? This is not easy to do. But I will tell you something that many of us have experienced. When we're younger, we were on one side of the issue. When we're older, we ended up on the other side. You have that experience?
I don't think I'm old enough to be on the other side of it.
Oh, okay. One of Prabhupada's godbrothers told us after Prabhupada left, he said after the Guru disappears, friends become enemies and enemies become friends. Things start to juxtapose a bit. And because when the Guru leaves, people start saying, but Guru Maharaj said this, and other people say, no, he said that. He wanted this, he wanted that. Because we're individuals, we focus on different things. We see different aspects of that person. And sometimes we would wonder, why would devotees have different opinions if Prabhupada taught one thing? It's very interesting. But because we see things differently, we focus on different things. And so that was the discussion, that it's something we have to accept and acknowledge and learn how to deal with in a way where we don't create any schisms or cracks, but we learn to respect it. Not that we work harmoniously together. Our harmony is that we allow one another. We're respectful enough of one another that we appreciate one another's sincerity and uniqueness. Now, for example, let's say everyone in this room was a doctor, and we're opening a center, and we have 50 doctors. Nobody knows accounting. Nobody's going to wash the pots, because why should I wash the pots? I'm a doctor, right? Nobody's going to sweep the floor, because doctors don't sweep floors. And so you could understand that it would be really strange if we were all the same, right? So Krishna created uniqueness because we need variety. And if we all thought the same, although we think it would be nice, we could end up in a fool's paradise. So if we can learn to appreciate people who disagree with us, that means we're open-minded, and we can allow those people who disagree with us to educate us a little bit about things that we don't see. Someone will say something, say, I never thought of it that way. Right? I don't agree with that, but it's good to know that some people think like that. Doesn't make sense to me, but I can respect it. It makes sense to you. Right? I come from America. I come from a part of America which is very relaxed. It's called Southern California. If you're from Southern California, the motto is, go with the flow. Just go with the flow means, you understand? Just whatever happens, just flow with it. So for me, it takes a lot to upset me. Or to, just sort of if something goes out of control, it takes a lot for me to get upset because I tend to go with the flow. But other people don't go with the flow, and if things get out of control, their nature is to immediately put it back in control. Right? It's a different nature. No, you can't just let it go. You have to control it. No, but you can control it. No, you have to try. No, but it's out of our control. No, you have to try. So, we've all seen those natures, haven't we? Somebody's into details. Somebody's not into details. Somebody's into planning. They're going to India in December. They're already planning now. If I'm going India in December, if I'm going December 12th, my plans start about December 10th. I start 9 or 10. Start shopping a few things. And then I pack either the night before or that morning. That's me. Someone else, 3 weeks in advance, they're shopping, lists, isn't it? Different nature. Those two people live together, not so happy. It might be, but sometimes not. So, that was the discussion yesterday. So before we go to today's topic, if we even get to today's topic, I wanted to ask you if you had any questions or comments from yesterday. Yes?
Comments.
Yes?
I don't mind diversity when it's with another person because how that person brings it. So if someone has very
You mind how they bring it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
If someone has a more softer energy, diversity can be there, but depending on how the person communicates, that makes it difficult.
Yeah.
So it's not that the diversity itself, it's the way that someone
Yeah.
presents it.
But wouldn't that be true even if they agreed with you? If you had the same opinion, but they were very harsh in the relationship, wouldn't that also be a problem? Prayag will explain it.
Constance really rough. Even if they agree with you, how they express it can be rough as well.
Well, if we agree, we agree, so there's no problem.
Well, it may have taken you time to agree. It may have hit you over the head to get you to agree. No, I'm just trying to find out if it's the agreement what's important or the way it's discussed.
If you bring in a different angle and someone just shuts it down completely.
Yeah. Yeah, so what we had discussed yesterday is that sometimes you cannot work with someone, and the way you agree with them is to let them pursue whatever it is they're pursuing, and you pursue whatever it is you're pursuing. And you don't condemn them. That was the big point yesterday, because we had discussed that sometimes someone believes something and they're not satisfied till everyone believes it also, as opposed to respecting those who don't believe and respecting the beliefs of others, or respecting others to pursue what it is they believe, as long as you can validate it in some way within Krishna consciousness. So this is also valid. And we had given the example of maybe you want to present Krishna consciousness in a certain way, I want to do it in a different way. They're both valid ways. And we'll see which way is successful according to the situation. So sometimes cooperation means separation. You know, building walls sometimes helps. Yes, what? Yes.
Just the response to the response. Wouldn't that be just another aspect of diversity? That people have different ways?
Oh yeah, different communication. Yeah. Yeah. In some countries when they talk like this, they talk real fast and you think they're yelling at one another. And I say, why are you yelling? They go, we're not yelling. That country is called China. Why are you yelling? We're not yelling. You're not yelling? You sound like you're yelling. Yes? That's just how we talk. But if you're around it, you're like, close the door. Yeah. But as individuals, we want to be tolerant. We want to try to work with as many people as we can. But realistically, according to our advancement, we may not be able to do it. So you may have to find people who speak your language, your love language. Yes, that's natural. You had a question, Krishna Koshini? And then?
Actually, I wanted to talk about something else because yesterday you said also that...
Well, let's wait.
Yeah,
it's something else?
No, relating to yesterday's class, actually, because...
I just want to ask him, is your question on the present?
What you were talking about.
Let him go and then you can go after.
I'm from Australia and I know there's still the young people there now. They're speaking really fast.
The young people are?
They're talking very fast, young people.
As opposed to the old people?
Yeah, as opposed to I grew up in the 70s and all my generation we speak about speed. the young people speak really fast.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering if you might have a comment or
Maybe they're drinking a lot of coffee. Starbucks. They're spending too much time with Starbucks. I'm not an expert, but every 10 years you get a new generation with a new culture. So you're like 4 generations removed, right? So they must be really weird to you. I was telling somebody, was I telling you? I was writing a book, or I have written a book, and then I asked a devotee to review it. And he was explaining to me that certain things I wrote won't relate to young people because they don't think. The young people of my generation think differently than the young people of this generation. So I could only relate to young people of my generation. He said, you have to change this and you have to change that because young people don't think like that, and that's not going to make sense to them. So you are now an old man officially. Generation gap. Let her. Okay? Is that okay?
The thing is that Prabhupada once said, maybe more than one, I'm not sure, but he said that no one can destroy this movement like from outside.
Yes.
Only you can destroy
Yes.
it from inside.
Only destroy from inside.
Yes. So I remember you also mentioned it yesterday, and I remember that when you were in Poland during this appearance day of Prabhupada, it was Vyasa Puja, you said that some, not psychologists, sociologists, yes, they said that this new religions can survive for
4 generations.
generations.
Well, they generally die after the 4th generation.
That we are at this point, and I was wondering if it's not that, because sometimes we think that this movement is like developing, but I have opposite feeling. I think that it's a kind of regress. We see it everywhere, at least in Europe. It's like total regress. So is it not that we are somehow or other destroying this movement?
The question is, are we destroying the Krishna consciousness movement? Well, let me first explain what I explained to her. Sociologists have studied new religious movements, and on the average, they don't last more than 4 generations. But they calculate generations differently. So we're the 2nd, you're the 3rd, and your kids are the 4th. So the 4th is right around the corner. So the 4th, and it means dying out after the 4th generation means like 50 or 60 years from now. It's pretty scary. So we were discussing that reality, not necessarily saying that would happen to us, but at the same time not saying it couldn't happen to us. And Krishna Karshani is saying that Prabhupada said we can not be destroyed from outside, but only from inside. That's why this discussion is so important, because this discussion is meant to help us understand how to get along with people we disagree with, who also are sincere devotees, serious, and also understand Krishna consciousness, but in a different way. Now, we have an example in our movement, probably the biggest example of this is Krishna West, which is looking at the spreading of Krishna consciousness in one very specific way. And taking that specific way of looking at Krishna consciousness and spreading it and developing an organization around it. So it's kind of a test for our society, because it's a little bit different than what we've done in the past. Can we accept it? Can we acknowledge it? Can we respect it, even if we don't agree with it? And then you have some people who want very traditional, very opposite of that. Can we respect that? If we can't, then what you say may be true. That we may... What I would predict, if I had to predict anything, that it'll continue. It just may not be that functional. It may not be that ideal.
But I've noticed noticed that there are devotees who are saying that it's like in Christian religions in Poland. We have people who are saying that we believe in God, but we don't want to be a part of
The church, yeah.
And I'm like meeting many devotees like that who are saying, I'm believing in Krishna, I'm my deities, this and that, but I don't feel a member, I don't want to be a member of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
But they are somehow because
Well, there's a problem.
Islam gurus.
There's a problem there. No one has defined what it means to be a member. You know, no one has defined what it means to be a member of ISKCON. The GBC has not defined it. No. No. You don't have to be initiated to be a member. I mean, in theory, it means you cooperate and accept the GBC, but no one's defined whether that's the... We read yesterday that for this Krishna consciousness movement, its success depends on agreement. And what Prabhupada was saying, it was so important. He was saying agreement, not that I agree with you, but I agree to work with you, and I agree to respect you, but I don't necessarily agree with you. And we are thinking, to be able to work together, we have to agree with one another. That's the, you understand? That's the significance. Normally, we would think, I can't work with someone unless I agree with them. We're not on the same page, how can we work together? The Prabhupada's definition of agreement was much bigger than that. That we can work, let's say in the same temple, we don't work in the same department because we see things differently, but we're working in the same temple, and we're respecting one another. Oh, that's Nirmal Chandra, he's in charge of this project. I wouldn't run it the way he's running it, but that's the way he sees it, and so he runs it that way, and I'm in charge of another department, I run it differently. And we respect one another. So we're in agreement in that sense. That I respect that you're sincerely serving Krishna to the best of your capacity, and you respect me in the same way. And we realize that it's good we see things differently, because if we all saw things the same way, we would only have one department. Now we have two departments. Sometimes you have two departments because people can't agree. So now we have two ways of doing something. So if we can appreciate that number one is natural, it's going to happen, you can't avoid it because we're all different. And number two, we have to be able to work with one another, and we can, even if we disagree. Then I don't think we have to worry about the future. Well, at least we don't have to worry about splitting. Then we can worry about something else in the future, but not this. So this is the problem. I think in order to work well with others, I have to agree with. Agreement means we believe the same thing. But agreement may be, I'm respecting your vision. We were speaking yesterday that some devotees have an inclination for a more traditional, conservative approach to spiritual life. A lot of them like to live in India. They don't like the West. They don't like, if they go to the West, they feel uncomfortable. They don't like the values in the West. They don't like modern things. And some devotees are the opposite. They don't like traditional things. They think that it's out of sync with the world. They think so many problems in ISKCON are because we're too traditional, and the world has changed, and the world's going this way, we're still going this way. You know? And both have very good points, and both have some bad points, I think. So we have to learn to coexist. You know, Paul McCartney wrote a song when he was with the Beatles. What? No, it's I say yes, you say no. You say hi, I say low. I say I don't know. What's the chorus for that? You know? Remember?
I say
Yeah.
goodbye.
Yeah, that's it. You say goodbye, I say hello. Or I say hello, you say, I say. So, if we accept we're all different, and if we accept it's actually good that we're different. Just imagine if everyone in ISKCON were exactly like you, if everybody thought exactly like you, there would be no variety. It would be kind of like just a little bit of a tunnel. Only one kind of kirtan, only one kind of class, only one kind of prasadam, just only one kind of everything, only one way to preach, isn't it? It would be kind of boring, right? Da? Pravda? Yeah. So sometimes we don't like variety because we don't agree with the variety. But just imagine there was no variety. That would be scary, wouldn't it? You'd have to make sure that one person who was the way everybody in ISKCON was going to be is very elevated and very broad-minded and open, and otherwise this is the way it is, only this way, and only people in the world that were like that would relate to us, and everybody else would come to the temple and I don't find a place here. It's to this or it's to that. But because there's so many of us, it's not to this or that, it's all of it. Does that make sense? So these are the misconceptions, right? It's bad that we're all different. We have to all be the same to agree. And the Prabhupada's saying, no, difference is natural and it's fine. We agree that Krishna is God and we serve Him. So, and if we agree on that and respect one another, then we can work well together. Yes, he wants to ask a question. Yes.
Допустим, есть такая ситуация в семье, что жена такая быстрая, как Павел написал, а муж он не того, и ее это раздражает. Соответственно, так как она все быстро делает, мне тогда считаю, что она не все классно, как муж он такой лузер, и что с этим делать?
What to do if, in a family situation, the wife is very energetic, she's very quick at everything, and the husband is very laid back and a bit slow sometimes. So she's full of beans, and she's full of beans, and also that's not English.
Four beans. She's heavy?
Full of beans.
Full of beans? Energetic.
And
what should he do?
So she thinks she's right, and things seem a bit of a loser. So
what should he do? Oh, what should she do? She should talk to my wife. My wife will help her. My wife can help her. What husband should do? He should take her to my wife. Because, here's the problem, and this relates to you also. No.
What if she decided that she doesn't want to speak to you?
Yeah.
Sorry, to you.
Then she can speak to me. And I'll take her to my wife. If not, you can fast until she speaks. Hunger strike.
She says she doesn't know them, so she doesn't want to come and see you.
Yeah. No, but say, for me, because you love me, you do what I ask. So, here's the thing. In the present age, we find that a lot of men don't know what it means to be a man. And a lot of women don't know what it means to be a woman. Yes? Yes? You understand? Yeah. And so a lot of problems in marriage are because the woman's being the man and the man's being the woman. And if you act more like a woman, she's going to act more like a man. And if you act more like a man, then she can be a woman. Does that make sense? Yeah. So sometimes weak men cause women to be more like men because the man is not fulfilling the role of the man, so she fulfills it because someone has to fulfill it. Yes, that true? Dina, is that true? In China, that's common. Yes? Yes? I think it's more common in China than in other countries, from what I was told. Is that true? Women are stronger, men are weaker. Yeah. So, are women naturally stronger, or they become stronger because the men are weaker? What's the answer? Yes? Yes? You agree?
Yes.
Yes? Yes? No? She agrees. Yes? She agrees. Yeah. You had a question?
Related back to the topic about our agreement.
Of?
Agreement. And the
Agreement.
What's gonna happen if the things make so much diversity, and even in certain ways for us the new people, or maybe people who's gonna be more new. What about with the faith? Because
what were they?
Because
oh, faith.
Is there a risk that, just an example, I really want to follow you, and if something change in the environment, maybe the people are fit from the most dumb disciples, we can lose the control to say where is the right path, because there's so many and they say that this is the path and this is not the path, and no,
okay.
You know, like
yeah.
How the people is gonna make the
decision? Yeah. That's a good question.
The confidence that I'm following the right guru, for
Okay.
example, just for example.
Oh, if you're following the right guru. Well, the first point is, we all agree that Krishna's God. We all agree that we're servants of God. We all agree Prabhupada's the founder Acharya. So we're all spirit soul. There's so many things we agree on. So there is a unity, right? But in answer to your question, it's already happening, and you're still alive. So then I would ask you, well, how did you do it? Because as individuals, like we have our godbrother, Vaisheshika Prabhu, and so he's going around the world encouraging people to distribute books. We have a devotee like Bhakti Raghava Swami, so he's going around the world encouraging people to set up farms, varnashrams. Gopal Krishna Maharaj is opening lots and lots of temples in India. Radhanath Swami, university preaching and eco-village. So it's already going on. But there's so much harmony that the difference is the minor portion. And it's also, the differences are also in regards to angles of how we want to reach the public. And the third thing I would say is that because there's diversity, different people will be attracted to different aspects of the diversity, which is kind of why sometimes you're attracted to a certain guru and you don't know why. Because it's the way you think. Or you're not, or some guru gives a class and you're like, I don't really relate to that, but it's different nature. So in a sense, so it's good, because that way we give a chance for many people to find a guru that they relate to. So you have Krishna West, you have Krishna East, you have Krishna Middle, North, South. And if you're mature as a devotee, then you'll understand. The differences are in details, not in principles.
Yeah.
But we're going to get the but part now. What's the but part? You're confused? Or disturbed sometimes?
I meet some devotees who are not in the same line. Because
they're in a different movement.
they're Krishna consciousness, but in a different sampradaya, and they have been changing from sampradaya, like taking they were in ISKCON, and they didn't like the system, and they took first initiation in another sampradaya, and then second initiation in another one because his first guru died, for example. And for example, when I talk with them, they told me, I say, I believe in Prabhupada. Prabhupada said that we are serious. We can go with him in this life. And
they
say,
said, yeah, 3 lifetimes.
No,
3 lifetimes. Yeah.
you're gonna take
Okay.
so long.
Okay.
And if someone told
I
me
understand.
that,
I understand.
it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So she's saying that's a different issue. You're hearing from people outside of ISKCON.
But that can happen if the diversity in
It's not going to happen. It won't happen. Not in
many
ISKCON.
different kind of thoughts. It's going to be like many different preaching and many different interpretations about the philosophies.
Not in
of,
ISKCON.
like these things, and it's gonna be tasting the fit and the new people. Maybe for the senior, they're not gonna have any problem, but for people just like me, for example, or someone younger than me in Krishna consciousness, it'll be confused, or the fit is gonna be, I don't know. I think that's what I tried to say.
I understood. Yeah. It's not common that people in ISKCON are talking to people from different sampradayas. And generally, these are the kind of confusions that happen when you're talking from people from a different school. So when you do, you understand, oh, that's from a different, that they're coming from a different point of view, so you just understand it. That's what they teach there. And Prabhupada didn't say that. So if Prabhupada didn't say it, what's the problem for you? No, there is no problem, because he didn't say it. So, and generally, if people from another sampradaya are coming to our temple, then we would ask them, you're welcome here, but please don't speak to our guests because you have different points of view and it will confuse them. And when we go to your temple, we won't speak to your guests. That we respect one another. So if you're going to listen to people from other sampradayas, yeah, you might get confused. So
And I wasn't even preaching. I was in the temple and like a comment,
No, that's
we're going to follow Prabhupada and we're going to get...
Yeah, well, that's a mistake.
in this life."
That's a management issue. It's more of a management. No, it's a management problem. Okay, hold on, everyone. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to read something to answer her question. Hold your hands. We will get to you in a moment. We have something from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which will answer Krishna Priya's question. Oh my God, wait a minute. Oh no. Just when you want it, it's not there. Oh, hold on. In the disciplic succession of Vaishnavas, the previous acharyas are established respectfully as Siksha Gurus for the Sampradaya. However, the Adya Acharya, the founder Acharya, or the original Guru of a disciplic line, is appropriately worshipped and respected as the Guru Shiromani, the topmost crown jewel of the spiritual masters. His perfect philosophical conclusions are to be followed by all in the Sampradaya. Any contrary instructions will not be accepted. Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Okay?
Maybe I misunderstood. When you say diversity, I thought you were talking about to everybody in Krishna consciousness wants to work together, and I was maybe misunderstanding that everybody who believes in Krishna have to work together.
Well, even, okay. But let's say your people from this other movement, let's say we wanted to include them in Krishna consciousness. So how would we include them? Just like in the Catholic Church, you have differences of opinion, but they're housed within a certain order. So that order believes this order believes that, and that everybody's okay with it, because we know that's what they believe, and so that's what they teach. Okay, so we accept that, but we're following Prabhupada's teachings, and this is what he teaches. Can you accept both?
What it means as both, respect them?
Respect, yeah. Respect and understand. This is, okay, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta taught this, but Prabhupada adjusted and he's teaching this. And so those who are following the line of Bhaktisiddhanta will be teaching that, and those who are following Prabhupada are teaching this. Do you know that in Gaudiya Vaishnava history, women were not given Gayatri mantra. They were given the other mantras, Pancharatriki mantras, at second initiation, but they weren't given Gayatri mantra. And Prabhupada was the first one to give them Gayatri. So that's a difference. So if you go across the river and you get initiated, second initiation, you won't get the first line of the Gayatri, the Savitri Gayatri mantra. You don't get it if you're a woman. Only a man will get it. So,
Was it not that just husband was getting there at the end?
yeah, and then the husband puts on 9 threads on his thread. I have 6. I should have 9, 3 for my wife. So, but it's not a problem for us, because Prabhupada gave women the Gayatri. So we understand, there they don't get it, here they get it. Not a big problem. So we understand, that organization has certain beliefs. Okay. We're in ISKCON, in the center, we have these beliefs, and we respect that, but this is what we follow. Business finished. Is that okay?
One more issue came out right now, because you said that I see that many devotees who started to read or like books of Bhaktivinoda Thakur or Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, sometimes they are confused because, like as you said, Prabhupada is saying sometimes completely different things. Like as you said, it's adjusting. And someone told me that devotees who are translating books from Sanskrit.
I told you.
You told me.
They all had trouble in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah. So it's not an easy situation when you are like digging and you are finding out that Prabhupada said something different, and some people are just confused.
It's something that's normal, and we have to be mature enough to deal with it. We have gurus in our movement who were Vaishnavas their entire life. And a few things they say are different from what Prabhupada says. That's what they were taught. And they understand Prabhupada within the context of what they were taught. And even though this guru will say this, that guru will say this, because that's what they learned from their father, their grandfather. You know. So, okay. So that's their understanding. We respect it. It's not the end of the world. They're not preaching that Krishna is not God, and we shouldn't surrender to Prabhupada. So we just have to be mature. And you have a guru, so what's the problem? You just follow him. No problem. Right? So if someone says, this, and says, yes, that's nice, but my guru says this. So I have to, who can argue? You follow your guru. In Gaudiya Math, they say, it takes at least 3 lifetimes to go back to Godhead. And Prabhupada many times said in one life. So I say, I respect you, what you're saying, but my Guru Maharaj said this, or Prabhupada said that. And so that's where your faith is. And when people come to a temple, when they go to that temple, they'll hear 3 lifetimes. When they go to our temple, they hear 1 lifetime. And they'll have to decide what sounds better. I think the 1 lifetime sounds better. It's the best, so they might want to go to our temple to get it's faster, cheaper. These are not things you can control. If you go to one Christian church, you'll hear you're going to burn in hell forever. If you go to another Christian church, you might hear something else. You have to decide. Right? Is that okay? You have your guru, so what's the problem? You follow what he says. And if you find that these people are coming to your temple and confusing guests, then you tell the president that you should talk to them. Certainly they're welcome here, but they shouldn't be speaking anything that we don't represent, because that will make it a problem. Yes?
Just a small question. Actually, like there are people who just believe in Prabhupada, but they don't believe in the current guru system. They
Yes.
just believe in
Yes.
So how do we, deal with those? We avoid them, but what is the right way?
So she's asking, there's some people who believe that Prabhupada can still initiate, even though he's gone, and that Prabhupada didn't want any living gurus of his disciples to initiate. How do we deal with them? Well, one good answer is we don't deal with them. That's the easiest way to deal with them. Especially if you have a guru or want to have one, it will be very difficult to deal with them because they will tend to criticize your guru or the principle of guru. And so faith is an essential ingredient in bhakti. Faith in your guru is essential. So if you associate with people who will undermine your faith, it will be detrimental to your bhakti. So it's better, either them or anyone who would undermine your faith, you want to stay away from. Yeah, your guru said this, but Prabhupada said that. He doesn't know what he's talking about. That's going to be really difficult for you. So you want to stay away from that. Philosophically, it's another issue. But for those of you who don't know, there's a group of people who became concerned that some of our leaders left their vows. And when enough leaders left their vows, they started to consider that maybe Prabhupada didn't want them to be gurus because they didn't seem to be qualified. What's interesting about that came up in maybe 5 years or so after Prabhupada left. But in the last 20 years, hardly any leaders have left. So the very causes of developing that don't exist anymore. So, they like to say leader this, leader that, but it's not true. It was true earlier, but it's not true now. So, kind of like they don't really have an argument anymore. I learn a lot from Donald Trump because he has no argument. And he just gets people to believe him, whatever he says. It's amazing, isn't it? It's just he can lie and make things up, and people believe it. I'm so amazed by it. So that's kind of what's happening with that. The people who don't like authorities, people who just have an issue with a guru other than Prabhupada, there's a place for them. But they can't back it up with Shastra or Guru or Sadhu. It's not there. So we have this thing in America. You know the story of Pinocchio? Pinocchio used to lie and his nose would grow. So they give Trump Pinocchio points. So they televise his lectures and then they check the facts of what he's saying, and at the end, how many lies he made is how long Pinocchio's nose is. So. But I think some people, somehow they like lies. It makes them feel good. You know, if I tell you, say, look at, if you accept me as your guru, I have so much Shakti that you'll be chanting 64, and like in a few weeks, you're going to be chanting 64 rounds like it's 16. It's going to be easy. It's going to be really easy. I can do it. I know how to do it. I have the power. You know, you'll be like, wow. Can I get de-initiated and re-initiated by you? You know, this sounds good. So some people like that, you know, they just, you know, this sounds good, I could get initiated by Prabhupada, you know, that's really good, because Prabhupada's not here, so I don't really have to be guided by anybody, I'm pretty independent. Sounds good to me. You know, Trump is a good example of a bogus guru. So Trump said, yeah, we'll build a wall, it's going to be easy, it's going to cost $5 billion, we can do it. So now it's up to like 25 billion, and it's not easy. And he said Mexico will pay for it. So he's saying all these things and people are believing it. So some people want to believe it. So
You know, there's one temple in India where they worship.
oh yeah, there's a temple or a person?
Family, that's all.
Person, not a hotel.
It's a family.
Oh, family. Who made a little temple, yeah. Trump Puja, yeah, one family. Yes?
Jumping back to the topic of diversity, and this is a point concerning today's Bhagavatam class given by Bhakti Prabhu. Would you say that the problem is on the focus of the secondary, right? Because like
Focus on the
secondary aspect. Because he made a point that there's the primary aspect, which is to serve Krishna, whereas everything else is secondary.
detail.
Right.
Did he mean detail by secondary?
Well, so the secondary aspect would be, for example, in this specific scenario, it's being conservative or a liberal, right? It comes secondary from our nature, which is being Krishna conscious.
So primary serve Krishna.
Yeah, exactly. So your primary aspect, which is the most important, is your relationship with Krishna.
Yes.
Everything else is secondary.
Yes.
So
whether you're liberal or conservative is secondary.
Or like anything else, really.
Yeah.
So would you say that the main problem, like in this cesspool of diversity and like arguing back and forth, is focus on the secondary rather than the
Yeah. Yes. Focus on the detail rather than the principle. But again, I would also say that extremely dangerous is that you have your focus and you won't be happy until everyone agrees with you. Because for you, it's obviously what Prabhupada wants, and you feel that the movement will be contaminated unless everyone agrees with your point. So that's where the beginning of division starts, because everyone won't agree. But then, now whose side do you want to be on? Because I don't agree with you. So who wants to be on his side? Who wants to be on my side? Now we have sides. So that's what happens when you focus on secondary. And Prabhupada has warned us. And the interesting thing, Prabhupada warned us about this. You know what we read yesterday, those letters? That was a warning. And Prabhupada would sometimes say, don't become another Gaudiya Math. Which basically means you fight and split. Fight and split, fight and split. So it seems to me that was one of Prabhupada's major concerns, that we would split. And if we split, we would lose the power to fulfill his vision of making the world, or making many people Krishna conscious. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yes?
So you sort of answered my question already, but I just want to get a little bit of clarification about ISKCON and how we can get a better reputation amongst fellow Indian people.
Get a better reputation amongst?
The general Indian population.
Oh.
So I've noticed, like the Hindu Society people, we had a program in Tasmania and none of them showed up.
Oh.
mean, we invited them and everything.
Well, I'll tell you something funny. And this is not meant to be offensive to Indians. I have to explain the context. But in many temples in the world, we don't have local people coming. We only have Indians, or predominantly Indians. And so the local leaders are trying to get more locals to come. So if they did a program and no Indians came, they'd be pretty happy. Because if there's too many Indians, the locals won't come. So it sounds funny, but some temples are trying to, I don't know, how should I say it? Trying to attract more local people. So, and the Indians in Tasmania, I never met them, so I can't say what the problem is. Maybe if you don't have deities, if you don't have prasadam and kirtan, Indians don't, and temples, they don't really relate. So maybe, do you have a temple there and deities?
No, we don't have a temple. It's just like a British.
Okay, I'm going to tell you something funny, and I won't tell you where this happens. But there's a temple in your country, in the wonderful country of Oz, the world of Oz. There's a temple, and it's all Indians. In that same city, there's another temple, and it's all non-Indians. And that was strategically planned. He said, well, this is the temple the Indians go to, so let's focus on non-Indians, because if Indians come here, then the Australians, well, they won't feel comfortable. They'll think this is for Indians. So what he did is, in his center, there's no deities. And you have to pay for prasadam. And there's very nice, soft, mellow kirtan with keyboards and like that. And he said those three things keep Indians away. If you have to pay for prasadam, they won't come. If there's no deities, they won't come. And if the kirtan's Hare Krishna, they won't come. So there's no Indians there. So if you don't want Indians, now you know how to keep them away. The 3 steps to keeping Indians away from your temple. So you probably followed those 3 steps, and you successfully kept them away. And it's so funny, because you're the first Westerner I ever heard saying, why can't we get more Indians? Everybody's saying, how do we get more West? Indians are coming, we didn't invite them. I'll tell you a story. I was in South Africa during apartheid. And we lived in a all-white neighborhood, and it was illegal for anyone other than whites to live there. And there was an Indian neighborhood. And in order for us to attract white people, we had to have only white people coming. That was the culture there. So if we met an Indian, this was in the city of Johannesburg, and the Indian, it was like 60 miles away, is the Indian place called Lenasia, where they had a temple for Indians. But a few Indians lived in Johannesburg. And someone would say, we meet an Indian on the street, they'd say, do you have a temple? And we say, no. We don't have a temple here. Our temple is in Lenasia, it's 60 miles away. We needed to attract only the white South Africans. And the blacks weren't accessible at that point. Now it's different. Because now everything's mixed. And it's not such a problem. South Africa's not a problem. Indians, blacks, Africans, white people, it's not an issue. But in those days it was. So maybe it's a blessing. You know, once you get a lot of Indians, it makes it more difficult to attract the local people. Definitely. But if you want Indians, deities, temples. You have to build a temple or buy a temple and have beautiful deity worship and nice prasadam, and don't charge for the prasadam. And kirtan, I don't know. What kind of kirtan? Hare Krishna. Some flutes and, I don't know. Ask her what kind of kirtan, she'll tell you. What they like, and then you'll... But a lot of that won't relate to... and it's got to be spicy. And a lot of that won't relate to locals. And then from that you're going to need other things. Nursery schools, and because they'll start coming. You'll have lots of them. And what has happened in a lot of temples is that they attracted so many Indians, they didn't have any time to cater to the local people because they had to do the nursery school and this program and that program because there's such a big community. So, if that's what you want, deities, temples, that's what they like. Am I right? Deities, temples? Yes? Okay. Yes?
That's regarding the fact that we can disagree on.
Regarding the...
We can sometimes disagree on one instruction, like for example, in terms of preaching, there can be two opinions on the same service. Let's say, for example, book distribution.
Yes.
So you'll have one opinion which will be, okay, so we will follow what Srila Prabhupada instructed us, meaning distributing mainly the books that he made first, the Shampoo,
yes.
all those ones. And other opinion will be, yeah, but actually nowadays it's easier to preach with what they call bridge books.
Yes.
So, and yeah, so how do you manage to reconcile those two kind of
It's a good question. It's a good question. So he's asking, like, we have books which are written by Prabhupada disciples, like Coming Back. Still have Coming Back. And the books by Devamrita Swami also. Like this, so many books are coming out, and they have Prabhupada's books. So some people would say, just distribute Prabhupada's books, they're the purest and most potent. Some people would say, well, they're big, they're not so easy to understand, better just introduce people with other books. So who's right and who's wrong? I think this is going to be an eternal dilemma. And usually it's resolved by the book distributor themselves. They decide what they want to distribute. They say, like, I used to preach on college campuses, right? And everyone who got a Coming Back or a Chant to Be Happy or cookbook, when I met them, like the next week or the week after, I would say, did you read it? And they would say, yeah. And they could tell me what they read. And it was very rare that anyone who got a Bhagavad Gita, when I met them, came back and told me even, number one, they even read it, and number two, if they did, could remember anything. So that was just feedback I was getting. It wasn't like theoretical, I was seeing that. So it made me feel like, okay, if we're going to distribute Bhagavad Gitas, we need to have a reading club to read it with them, because they're not going to read it or they may not understand it. So I think what I've seen, this is my opinion, but I'm trying to be objective. What I've seen is that sometimes we don't objectively analyze what's actually happening on the street. We kind of imagine, because Prabhupada said if they touch the book, it's purifying. So I think, okay, it's Bhagavad Gita, someone's going to read it, and that's all valid. But if you actually ask them and then deal with what's happening, and people might say, I don't have the time to read such a big book, right? So maybe you might think, oh, why don't we write a little book on Bhagavad Gita, 20 pages, and that would interest them in reading the whole thing. That's possible, right? So let's say you did that, and you would check the result of that and say, this has really worked. I'm meeting these same people, now they want to read the Gita. Or we started a reading club, it's really working. All these people we meet on the street, every Monday night we have a reading club, and it's getting bigger. And so I think that's important. And it's going to be different in every city. When I went to South Africa in 1981, bookstores were packed. But by that time in America, nobody was reading books anymore. Or it was declining. But in South Africa, it wasn't. So it was a different culture. I asked the devotees in India, I said, did the people read the books you distribute? They said, no, they don't read them. So reading clubs. So these are things we have to analyze, and I think that individual book distributors kind of get a feel. And maybe the ones that have more faith in the Gita meet the people that can read it. Who knows? It could work like that. Yes?
The risk might be as well to that we stop distributing those big books, and that we only distribute the smaller books, which also less, they cost less to print.
Yeah. Well, it's a, yeah. I think it's a discussion you have to have in your temple, amongst the leadership. But I want to add something to this discussion. When I joined, I think Easy Journey was published, but we didn't distribute it on the street. We just distributed back to Godheads. And then the Bhagavad Gitas were sold at programs or in the temple. We might have brought Bhagavad Gita on the street, but that wasn't the main, it wasn't the main book. It was BTG, that was the magazine, came out every month, and that was a magazine for the street. And 90% of BTG was written by devotees, by Prabhupada's request. So just meditate on that. The Hare Krishna movement, from 1966 till we started in around 72, discovering how to distribute bigger books, it was predominantly being expanded not by Prabhupada's books, but by the writing of his disciples. And the disciples asked Prabhupada, they said, we want you to write more. And Prabhupada said, where did you learn everything you're writing? And we said, Prabhupada, we learned it from you. And he said, therefore I'm writing your articles. So to me, I know that people say, well, when the way Prabhupada writes, it just has more potency. It has a certain kind of potency, but you need a certain kind of person to be able to pick up the potency. That's my experience. So in 1992, we wrote a 25-page booklet. And it was strategically designed for young people. And most people who read that booklet got a very clear understanding of Krishna consciousness, the way it was presented. Because we were requesting feedback. And so I think, I think it's really hard to make decisions if you're not getting feedback from the people you distribute books to, because you're only imagining, okay, we distributed so many books, so it must be good. All right, well, how many devotees did you make? Where the people got the books? Are they reading them? Are they writing letters? Are you responding? All this is... So we have to look at the whole picture. So it's true, books are powerful, but I believe that the books of non-devotee, the books that we write are also powerful. And you have to evaluate it. And it may enable people to read Prabhupada's books. So let's use this as an example, and then we'll end, because this clock is about to strike 7, or it already struck 7. This was my idea. My idea was that you have an introductory book, and with every big book, that introductory book goes, and say, read this book first. Because if they read it, then when they read Gita, they'll already know what's in the Gita. Or you could write a book just for the Gita summary. So this will help you. Based on my feedback of people not reading it, or the feedback, I read the first chapter, but there were so many names, I put it down. It's like, if I read a book and I don't understand one thing, I'll go, okay, that book's finished. Some people are like that. So if that is true, and there can be statistics shown that a certain percentage of people, if they don't understand the first chapter, won't read beyond. You might want a book that says, start in the second chapter, and here's the summary of the first chapter. We have to be smart. And I think this is my personal opinion, and it's just me, but I think there's a little bit of blindness and maybe reluctance to get feedback from the public to actually what's happening. With our books. Like, send those books to your mother, to your brother, to your best friends from the past, your schoolmates, and say, give me feedback. What did you understand? What did you not? We don't do that. We don't know. So if you're a book distributor, it would be good to know, wouldn't it? I'd say, read these 5 books, and they go, well, the book that I understood, I liked the most, was this book. I gave my sister all kinds of books. She said, Prabhupada Leela Amrita. She said that was the only one that read like a normal book. The other ones I couldn't read. They didn't. So I think that's valuable. What?
Both books should go out anyway. because it's very personal. So some people will come to Krishna consciousness after reading Bhagavad Gita. Some
Yeah.
people-
Yeah, exactly. Something for everyone. Yeah. We all came, our generation, we read Bhagavad Gita, that was it. But now, brains aren't working the same way. So we may need, other things. So it's 7 o'clock, and we're going to have to say goodbye. You can stay here as long as you want. I don't know, I'm going to say goodbye to these people. I'm very inspired to do kirtan right now.